It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. One of those rare breaks where the air feels clean and the world slows down. I planned my trip carefully, slipping out of work early so I could surprise my wife and daughter at our family cabin tucked against the pines. The old place had stood for 3 generations, its porch worn smooth by summers of boots and laughter. But I never expected my early return to spark a war. When I pulled into the gravel drive, headlights bouncing off the cabin walls, Karen was already waiting. Arms crossed, clipboard tucked under one elbow like a shield, her bulk blocking the path as if she owned it. "You can't be here," she snapped before I'd even stepped out of my truck. Her voice carried sharp in the mountain air, meant to be overheard. Neighbors lingering at their porches shifted uneasily, watching. "This cabin falls under HOA rules now. You didn't file the occupancy notice. And by our bylaws, that makes your stay unauthorized." I stared at her, disbelief crashing into anger. "This cabin predates your HOA by 70 years. I said. "My grandfather built it with his hands. You have no authority here." She smirked, the kind of grin that made her face fold into something meaner. "We'll see about that. You have 3 minutes to leave, or I'll call the cops." I thought she was bluffing, but her phone was already in her hand, her voice shrill as she dialed. "Yes, officer. We've got a trespasser at 19 Pine Hollow Road. Dangerous. Refusing to comply. Send units now." Her eyes burned with triumph as she ended the call. "Hope you enjoyed your last visit. This cabin's about to be cleared." Inside, I could see movement through the window, me wife smiling as she greeted a guest I hadn't expected. The governor himself stood in my living room, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, speaking warmly to my daughter. He was an old family friend, someone who'd fished these same waters with my father decades ago. He had slipped away from the noise of politics for a weekend of quiet too. And now, Karen had summoned police to drag me out of my own cabin with the state's most powerful man standing inside. The sirens came fast, red and blue splashing across the trees. 2 cruisers screeched to a halt, doors slamming as officers advanced. Karen rushed to meet them, pointing dramatically at me. "That's him. He's trespassing. He's threatening our community. Remove him immediately." Her voice cracked with urgency, her hand jabbing like a spear. The officers' hands hovered near their belts, eyes narrowing as they approached. That was when the cabin door opened. My wife stepped out first, calm and steady, then moved aside as the governor himself emerged into the porch light. The entire crowd seemed to gasp at once. He wasn't dressed in pomp, just a flannel shirt and jeans, his presence quiet yet commanding. He raised a hand to the officers, his voice carrying the weight of command honed through years of leadership. "Stand down. This man is the rightful owner of this property, and he happens to be my host this weekend." The silence was electric. Karen's smirk shattered, her face paling as though the blood had drained from her body. "Gee, Governor," she stammered, her clipboard slipping from her hands and clattering against the gravel. Her jaw trembled, words failing as the realization crashed over her. She hadn't just called the cops on her neighbor, she had called them on a sitting governor. The officers snapped to attention, saluting instinctively. "Yes, sir," one said, lowering his hand from his holster. "We apologize for the disturbance." The governor waved them off kindly, then turned his gaze on Karen. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to freeze her in place. "You've wasted law enforcement's time with false claims, disrupted my weekend, and insulted a man on his own land. That's not leadership. That's harassment." The neighbors who had gathered began whispering louder. Phones raised high to capture the moment. Karen, who had strutted for years, issuing fines for mailbox paint and barking at children over bikes left on sidewalks, was suddenly stripped of every ounce of power. She stumbled back, eyes wide, lips quivering as if searching for an escape. But there was none. And as I stood there, the governor at my side, the irony of it all settled in like the mountain air. Karen had finally met a force bigger than her clipboard. Karen staggered back as though the governor's presence had physically struck her. The smug grin that had carried her through years of bullying neighbors was gone, replaced with wide, darting eyes and a pale face that seemed to sag under its own weight. She tried to salvage the moment with a weak laugh, forcing her voice into something that sounded almost deferential. Governor, two didn't realize you were here. I was only trying to keep order. You know how dangerous things can get when people don't follow HOA rules. The governor fixed her with a stare that could cut stone. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Rules don't give you the right to weaponize the police against your neighbors. You've wasted their time and my time. And you've embarrassed yourself in front of the very community you claim to protect. His words rippled across the crowd like a cold wind. The officers, still standing tall, turned toward Karen. One of them spoke, his tone sharp now. Ma'am, you gave us a false report. You described a dangerous trespasser when in fact you were targeting the legal owner of this property. That's obstruction and could qualify as filing a false police report. Karen flinched, her hands flying up as if to shield herself from the truth. No. It was a misunderstanding. I was only trying to enforce the standards. The neighbors, emboldened by her collapse, began shouting from the sidelines. Mr. Jensen called out. Standards. You fined me $500 because my fence was an inch too short. Mrs. Patel added. You threatened to tow my car for parking in my own driveway. The voices rose, overlapping, turning into a chorus of long-suppressed grievances. Phones recorded everything, ensuring the spectacle would outlive the night. Then came the twist no one expected. From the back of the crowd, a man in a crisp suit stepped forward. He introduced himself as Robert Keene, an aide from the governor's office. His voice carried with quiet authority. Governor, I think you'll want to see this. He held up a folder thick with documents that had been compiled over the past month. We've been reviewing complaints about HOAs statewide. This particular association has appeared on our radar more than once. Misuse of funds, forged votes, and repeated harassment of non-members. The governor took the folder, skimmed a few pages, and raised his eyes again to Karen. It looks like this isn't just a neighborhood nuisance. It's a pattern. Karen sputtered. That's no. Those are lies. I run the cleanest association in the county. But her protests sounded pitiful against the mountain of evidence laid before her. By now, the crowd was openly cheering. The officers moved closer to Karen, their posture no longer neutral. One said firmly, Ma'am, you're coming with us tonight. You can explain yourself downtown. The click of handcuffs echoed like thunder, and Karen howled in disbelief. You can't do this to me. I am the HOA. You'll regret this. But her voice was drowned out by applause and laughter. The governor turned to me then, his expression softening. I'm sorry your evening was disrupted. But maybe this was overdue. He raised his voice to address the neighbors. No one should live in fear of the very people meant to foster community. Tonight proves that bullies fall when truth stands tall. His words lit a fire in the crowd. They clapped, whistled. Some even cried. Years of frustration found release in that single moment of collective triumph. In the weeks that followed, Karen's arrest sparked a full-scale investigation. The treasurer of the HOA, tired of carrying her corruption, flipped and revealed everything: personal vacations billed as retreats, thousands of dollars in fake landscaping charges, and meetings where Karen forced false signatures onto minutes. The HOA dissolved under the weight of scandal. Its name a cautionary tale repeated at town halls and in living rooms across the county. Our cabin, once a target, became a symbol. The governor returned later that summer for a public barbecue by the lake, shaking hands with neighbors, praising the courage of a community that stood up against abuse. For the first time in years, the air felt light. Children played without fear of Karen's clipboard. Families painted their porches whatever color they wanted. The community had been reclaimed. Karen thought she could use the law as a weapon, thought she could bend authority to her will, thought she could banish me from land my family had owned for generations. But in the end, she discovered the one truth she could never twist: power without justice is nothing. And justice came for her faster than she ever imagined. So now I turn the question to you: is Karen's punishment enough? Or should people who abuse power and terrorize their neighbors face even harsher consequences?